Hey guys, what is going on? Sharp Thinking here. So, a lot of you guys will recognize this knife. I did a video on the Microtech Socom. I want to say, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. But since that video has come out, I've talked to loads of people that went out and bought one, and they love the knife. Is it a perfect knife? No, there's no such thing as a perfect knife. At least it's not going to be perfect for everybody. For me, living here in Ohio, this is damn near perfect. I love this knife, and I know a lot of people that went out and got them also enjoy them quite a bit. But this video is not going to be on the folding iteration of the Socom. It's going to be on this guy. So this is a Microtech Socom. What is this called? The Alpha Mini. There is a full-size Alpha. It's got a 5-inch blade. The Mini is the one I got my hands on, so that is what I'm doing a video on. Interesting knife. It is similar in terms of profile to the Socom. However, it's pretty different, actually. I really didn't even notice how this was done on the fixed blade as well. Before I get into anything, why don't we just do a size comparison so you can see it up against the Socom. We'll do the LUDT. So smaller in overall length than both of those. Fixed blades will tend to be smaller in overall length. There it is against a Strider PT. Here it is against a Strider SNG. Just got a text from Bama Knife Guy. I'm gonna have to hit him back later. Chris Reeves, Sabenza 21, and a Chris Reeve Umnumzon. Hinderer XM18, and the North Arm Sky High 2. And why don't we wrap it up with this guy, Microtech Stitch. So you can see, similar to the Bradford Guardian, it is shorter in overall length. That's to be expected from most fixed blades. They don't need to have a larger handle than overall length of the blade because obviously they don't fold. So I guess we'll start with the handle and we'll work our way to the tip, and then we'll talk about the sheath. So the handle is very good. It's put together with these Microtech screws. I've seen these on other Microtechs. I can't remember. Maybe it was the DOC, or it wasn't the Matrix. I can't remember where I've seen these before, but I've definitely seen these screws. Maybe on the carbon fiber version of the 2011 Socom. I think they may have used that for the pivot screw. I'm not sure. I don't mind the screws for a fixed blade. I don't really care that much. It would still be nice to take the scales off, to be able to take the scales off, I should say, in case you submerge the knife in water. It's not a carbon steel, so I don't think it's really at risk for getting a lot of rust going on under the scales, but I know a lot of people just like having the option. It's always good to have options, so I definitely understand that. The handle on this one is G10. They do make a signature series that has a DLC, and I'm not talking about a PVD or a Cerakote. It's a true DLC, that kind of shiny black coating. Beautiful coatings. I'm gonna have to showcase a knife with their DLC, which is one of the few true DLCs available. It's just a really beautiful coating. But that version has a carbon fiber handle, so kind of a step up. I think they're around the same price, but if you're just looking for a workhorse, M390 stonewash blade with a G10 handle should not be an issue for most people. You can see here, while we're talking about the handle, there is a ton of jimping. I've not been very kind to knives with a lot of jimping. You guys know, especially in this region right here, when you're bearing down on a knife, the knife will shift up. So it shifts back into here. So this jimping is creating issues. And it's also putting a lot of force right here on these two fingers. It's not great, guys. I'm not gonna lie. The jimping is not as harsh as a lot of other jimpings. Luckily, we do have a lot of thickness to the handle, so it kind of spreads out the force quite a bit. I did notice that this handle almost reminds me of a PM2. It's very blocky and not well rounded. It's pretty adequately textured. It's definitely not an uncomfortable knife, but it just reminds me a little bit of the PM2. I think this is more comfortable than a PM2. Sorry about that, guys. Just got a phone call. So anyway, I was talking about the handle. The handle is very well done. There's only a few things I can truly say are fair criticisms. That would be, we don't need jimping around the whole fucking handle. That's something that bothers me so much. And it makes this knife, like, it could be up here, and because it's jimped, it's like a little bit lower. In my opinion, it's less functional because of how much jimping there is. It could have been done right. It's just, in my opinion, it wasn't. And the other thing is this little corner right here. So this is pretty substantially sharp. I don't think this even needed to be here, this cutout. I know why they did it is because the folders all have the cutout. However, this is a fixed blade. It really doesn't need a cutout. The only thing the cutout does is subtract from the ergonomics. I think if they had just contoured it and gone with the overall profile of the handle, it would have been a little bit better. But all in all, the handle's pretty damn good. It's right around the same as like the Guardian 3 in terms of my own personal assessment of the ergonomics. Now, moving on to the blade. So the blade is actually smaller than the regular size Socom. I think it's a 3.5 inch blade, maybe a 3.75 inch blade. So a couple things that I immediately noticed about this. One, it is a little bit more abruptly ground. So that means as you're sharpening up the knife, the edge is going to get thicker and thicker behind the edge faster than the folding Socom. The blade, I also noticed this, is, what do you call this? Crowned. So much like the Sebenza, where's my Sebenza? The blade is rounded on the back. The Benchmade Anthem is like that as well. I personally think that's a really nice touch. I like that. To me, I don't know. It's just, it's a nice touch. That's about all I can say about it. It doesn't really add anything to the knife. The flat on this is a lot wider, almost twice as wide, and the tip is very substantial on this. So definitely, I would not be worried about breaking the tip off on this. Getting back to the comparison between the folding Socom and this, you guys know this knife is extremely thin behind the edge. In this section, and this knife is sharpened at 13 degrees per side, so just keep that in mind. In this section, it's around 10 thousandths behind the edge. At its thickest point, which is right here, it's around 20 thousandths behind the edge. That's huge for a knife of this size, and that's, you know, was built for this purpose, which is, it's a hard use folder. This knife, you kind of lose a little bit of that. It's still pretty thin behind the edge. It almost reminds me of like a Gen 6 Hinderer in terms of its profile. So I'm gonna, yeah, so like it's very similar in terms of grind to this knife. I'm not complaining about that. The Gen 6 Hinderers although they did change a lot of things that I think were amiss, they did start grinding them ever so slightly thinner. The profile just, it almost reminds me of just a thinner XM18 spear point. So definitely a win in my opinion. I would have loved to see it ground to the same thickness as the folding Socom. I think that would have been awesome. But it's just not what Microtech wanted to do. The M390, you guys know Microtech does kind of a shitty job with the M390. It drops back fine. It sharpens easily. It's just, I don't know. I've heard that they run it between 57 and 59 HRC. I would believe that just off my personal use, and I have plenty of use with their M390. Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks to see. I guess in this knife, I'm a little more forgiving because it is a tanky fixed blade, and, you know, normally with these knives, you're doing a lot of questionable things. I mean, more people would be prone to prying with this knife than, you know, the folding Socom, for instance. So I'll let that go. Yeah, moving on to the sheath. This sheath is sick. So it does come with a belt clip. Nigel, who is a local knife nut who I hike with, is letting me borrow this, and he does not run it with the clip. He does this little paracord wrap. Don't know why. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But then again, you know, Nigel is a little bit slow, so it's all good. The sheath is a win, in my opinion. I love this sheath. It's kind of a pseudo carbon fiber look to it. It really is just Kydex. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but that's kind of the game with Kydex. You're not really gonna get that unless you go custom. So it fits very nicely. Minimal like rattle in there. It's got a drainage hole. You can mount it. It'll take the Spyderco clip. It'll take the fucking, what's that called? The Keltec? Or that's a gun company. I don't know what it's called. The other belt clip. And then, yeah, it'll take most belt clips, and you can mount it, you know, in various positions and whatnot. I'm sure you could run it upside down if that's what you want to do. It does retain pretty well. So you can see it's a pretty nice sheath. I'm not going to lie. And I think that this little thing right here, this little function, by wedging your finger in between these two folds, it actually loosens and reduces the tension that the fixed blade is under. So it makes it much easier to, you know, deploy from the sheath. I really like that. It's not necessary, but it's kind of a nice feature. So yeah, I mean, all in all, the knife, in my opinion, is a win. It's $250 though. So when you look at a knife that's $250, like, there's a lot of options out there. This knife is $250. Maybe you're getting less in terms of overall cost of material. I know M390 in thick stock isn't cheap. It's not as expensive as people think, but it certainly is not inexpensive. G10 in this thickness, it's kind of pricey for what it is, but I mean, all in all, I don't know. These fixed blades, I'm kind of not used to the price scale that fixed blades are on. I'm gonna keep using this, and you know, I'll keep you guys updated. But so far, I think it's a win. For what you're getting, I think it's well worth it. I would have loved to see this in like CPM 3V. If they can put it on a folder like the Stitch, I don't see why they couldn't have done that with this, and, you know, possibly coated the blade with like a DLC or something if they were worried about rust to begin with. But yeah, I mean, there's not too many things that you can really be upset with this knife. It's a very traditionally shaped blade, which you guys know I love. I love a little bit of belly, a little bit of straight in the cutting edge. Yeah, it's a nice knife. It's a very, very nice knife. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of guys are going to get these. There's not too many fixed blade guys. So I don't know. I think it's a great knife. I am actually really considering buying a Signature series with the DLC and the carbon fiber. But yeah, that's just me. I'm a Microtech fan. I know that some people don't like Microtech at all. There seems to be a big misconception, and that is that you can't sharpen Microtechs and you can't disassemble them. I wanted to actually talk about that in its own separate video, but you can sharpen Microtechs and disassemble them. However, if you can't reassemble them, or you sharpen through the entire blade, they're not going to have your back on that. That's kind of more what I think they were meaning. And I don't know. I've talked to Jason McCoy, who works at Microtech, a couple times on Instagram, and I've gotten clarification on that. So yeah, just don't fuck up your knife, basically, is what the warranty is. I mean, if there is a defect, they have your back. I've sent this knife into warranty, and I sent an Ultratech, which I'm going to do a video on, into warranty, and they took care of me. I mean, they really did a good job. The knives were, I think, in their possession for, I don't know, like 3 weeks, I want to say, and then they sent it back. That's pretty good in my opinion. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.